Welcome to the International Schools Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and on the podcast we discuss all aspects of technology and life in international schools, with new episodes live every 2 weeks. We focus on people currently working in international schools, and we talk about life in their current country, and then we dive into some specific topics. The podcast is sponsored by Apps Events. We're a Google for Education partner and made up of former educators, all experts in helping schools integrate Google into their schools and classrooms. All training is customized for every school to make sure it has lasting impact. We're also experts on online virtual Google training, and we can deliver all our certification bootcamps and training completely online to schools. We have teams in Europe and the Middle East, Asia and the US, and we can help you wherever you are. Check it out over at appsevents.com. We're also delighted to say we're now an ISTE partner, and we're delivering the ISTE Certified Educator worldwide with our subsidiary AE Learning. ISTE certification is a pedagogy-focused, vendor-neutral, professional certification aimed at educators wishing to transform their EdTech practice. We run 2-day certification bootcamps, which are amazing fun, great networking, and will give you a huge boost both to your career and for your school. Get all the info at aelearninglab.com. Finally, the podcast is brought to you by Acer for Education. People ask us what Chromebooks and Windows laptops we recommend for schools, and after literally trying them all, we always recommend Acer. If you'd like to get more information, please just leave your email at gg.gg/Acer Education, and we'll get straight back to you. We go to Acer HQ in Taiwan every year to be part of product discussions, and they are genuinely the best thought out, cost-effective, and durable devices out there. And now, on to the interview. Hello and welcome to the podcast today. It's great to be talking to Daniela Silva on the call from Peru. How are you doing, Daniela?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Dan. Saying hi from Peru. It's 9 a.m.
Exactly. So we've just been talking before the call that Daniela, you were just saying the schools are going to be closed until December at the moment. That's the advice you've got from the government in Peru. So that's more serious than in most countries in terms of a lockdown for education, if it stays like that.
For sure. And basically the government is telling us, be prepared to teach online until December, but you never know when that rule is going to change, maybe in September, October, November, but at least they were giving us a heads up of, just be ready.
Yeah. So I've worked with Daniela. We've ran an event at your school in Peru, and we've worked with you when you were in Qatar as well. So known you for a while. And I just want to have a chat about your background because it's interesting. You've worked in a few places, and you've got a kind of tech, leadership position in an international school. So we can talk a bit about how that came about, and maybe some advice for people looking to try to follow that route in the future. So, in terms of your background, I don't know much about your background. So for me, it's interesting to find out, how did you start off in education? Did you go straight into it after university?
I would say that international mindedness has always been in my roots. My mom is from China. My father's from Brazil. I was born in Ecuador. My husband is from Uruguay, and my daughter was born in Nepal. So we are a family that takes global citizenship pretty seriously.
Right. Your daughter was born in Nepal, was she?
Yes, she was born in Nepal.
Oh, wow. Did you work in Nepal as well?
Yeah, no, but that's I think that will be a different podcast.
Yeah. I was just there actually in Lincoln School, we did a summit there last year. So I was in Kathmandu. It was really great. I haven't been for a few years, but Kathmandu is one of my favorite cities in the world. I really love it there.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's really nice.
I mean, it's a tough place to live, in terms of traffic and pollution and just the hassle. There's a huge amount of bureaucracy there, but so I know the guys live there have a hassle, but it's still you've got the Himalayas, the people are amazing, it is cool.
Yep. It's a great part of Asia.
Yeah. So you were saying you were very internationally minded, and what how did you get into this education?
So basically, I finished college at 22 in Memphis, Tennessee. And then I just started working at an IB school, first as a teacher. After that, I had the opportunity to join a very small international school in my home city, which is Guayaquil, Ecuador.
Yeah.
Here's where I get to learn, international education field, the framework, how it really works. And when you're a teacher in a small school, or when you are a rising leader, you often wear many hats. And I started with an education.
Did you attend an international school? Because it's interesting, because like you obviously knew about it. A lot of people don't even find out about international education for a long time. Like, had you attended an international school yourself?
No, I didn't.
No, okay, but you knew about it.
I knew about it a little bit. I knew that they will speak only in English and you get a diploma from the US, but I really needed to understand more about it.
Yeah.
And, at this school, I started working and wearing many hats. And one of those hats was, working on a standardized assessment, which is the NWEA math test. So first, I was just the technology coordinator for the school project, but later for the entire scope, which includes communication strategy, the logistics, data retrieval, and analysis.
Got it.
So it was a lot of work, and what I was doing that, I had some friends, and one of my friends, Stacy, she said, you should think about going abroad. And that just stay in my mind, and I was just thinking about it. And she even helped me going to the job fair databases, looking at jobs that will suit my profile. And then I ended up in China as an IT director and also interim high school principal.
Okay, so we've got to start off. So your first job or second job, how did you become an IT director and interim principal? That sounds a bit crazy.
Well, I became the IT coordinator at this small international school in Guayaquil, Ecuador.
Yep.
And then I think I did really good in my interview in China. I became the IT director. They were looking for an interim high school principal. The director approached me, talked to me. I was really young. I was under 30th, under my 30th. And he coached me. I learned a lot. I had to make tough decisions. But I think that helped me a lot to build my rapport and to build my leadership skills.
Sure. How did you find it living in China? Like, what? I guess that was a few years ago. Like, what was it? Because I mean, the international school sector is growing hugely in China. I mean, I think the majority of international schools in the world are now in China. Like, how did you find it? Like, was it an interesting experience? And which city were you in as well?
I was in Ningbo, south of Shanghai, like 4 hours drive south of Shanghai. I must say that it was my first international post. So I'm assuming it was the hardest one because of the cultural shock that you get, especially in China, because you don't get the Latin words or anything like that. So it was really challenging for us: communication, transportation, food, and also it was a for-profit school. Yeah. So it was something different from what I was used to, but I'm glad it happened because that opened me the door to join Qatar Foundation schools, where I stay for 5 years. And when I started at Qatar Foundation School, I started at one of.
Yeah, go ahead, if you don't mind, I want to just stick on the China. You're so fast because there's so many interesting things you talked about here. Like, so what you were talking about, like China, like the for-profit, like what do you think are like the differences in like, and you mentioned it was a for-profit school and that has some challenges. Like, do you think like there's a real difference, or is it just some schools, or just in your experience? Like, and what were the differences you think with kind of a for-profit school to a non-profit school?
Well, that will be the only for-profit school I have worked at. And one of the things that really struck me is that any decision made at the top level, it's about increasing the revenue and decreasing the expenses. And it was not most about the teaching and learning that should happen inside the classrooms.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, people say that, but I mean, I was reading a couple of papers recently about this whole topic. So I'm fascinated by the growth of international schools, and I think it's now something like 75% of all international schools are for profit. It depends how you define an international school, but there's a few criteria you can use: certain curriculums, certain certification bodies, and things. But it's only growing, and China is. I mean, China is the fastest growing, followed by UAE, and then Hong Kong, Thailand, and I think Qatar is like number 4, or number 5 or 6 even. But China is by far the huge growth. I mean, there's like, there's tens to hundreds of international schools every year opening in China now. It's for me, it's fascinating that there's that many people to support that kind of market, in China. But it's huge there now.
And I agree with what you say. International schools has a different criteria. Is it because just you provide a bilingual education, or is it just because you provide an IB curriculum, or is it because your staff are 50% expats? There are different criteria, and you have to be careful what it really is an international school.
Yeah, definitely. But cool, yeah. Sorry to get back to your story. So Qatar, which is when we first spoke, you were doing. We ended up doing a summit there, which we're still running now. We've done Ph.D. I think you know Dan. So how was that? Like how was it going to Qatar from? Because I guess you had a family by this time as well.
Yeah, well, no, I flew with my husband from Ecuador to China, and then from China to Qatar. And I first started as an IT director at one of the Qatar Foundation schools. When I joined, they only had 5. When I left, in 5 years, they already had 10 schools.
Yep.
In my second year, they created the district office, and then this position came up as a 21st century learning director for all the schools, and I was offered the position. So that's when I got to work with you and James a little bit on the Google Summit.
Now, what is a 21st century learning director? Because that's a phrase that has a lot of different meanings depending on who you talk to. Like, well, what did it mean for you?
Well, what it meant was, normally what you have in different international schools is an IT director that talks about more systems, structure, network, Wi-Fi devices. But you, especially now during COVID times, you really want to know, and you really want to have a person who understands how to purposefully use this technology to enhance learning. Yep. So that was the role of the 21st century director at that moment. It was working with the technology coaches at each of the schools, and also the librarians. So it was creating like a task force between all of us to become a more oriented, future-oriented teachers that will use the ISTE standards, that will use the ASL standards, which are the American Association for Library Standards, and really finding a way to embed that into the IB curriculum.
Got it. Now, I'm curious, like, obviously we've gone through your background pretty quickly, like, because, the people who get into these technology leadership roles, I've seen different types of people. Some people are very, like, they come from a technical background, they know, like, even like programming, networking protocols. Some people have come from it more like as a kind of tech coach role. They're very much, they come from the user experience, but they've got like a technical mind. Like, what do you think was your background, and what do you think for someone in leadership? I mean, do you have to be technical? Do you have to be able to program, or can you be like a kind of more of a business analyst, someone who can translate the end user experience to everyone else?
I must say that for me, I started on the technical side. Yep. My bachelor's is actually in management information systems. Yep. My father was also a statistics professor. So since I was little, I was exposed to what teaching looks like, and he will even bring me to his classes sometimes. Wow. So when I got back to Ecuador due to family reasons, I started teaching English. Then I started teaching IB, and then I got my master's in teaching and learning. So I have both sides. Yep. But I would say it's really rare to find somebody who can understand the systems. Yep. And flowcharts and all these things, but also understands, coaching and learning innovation.
Yep. Got it. So you think, it seems to me there's a big variation in kind of people who take these roles in terms of what their technical skills are. You don't have to, like you're saying, it's probably rare for people to be very technical in that position, but there are some.
Yeah, and I would advise, if anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you want to become a tech director at an international school, you only have to be an educator before. I think that's the biggest reasons, because when you become a tech director, you will always have some people within your team that are the techies, the one who understands more, and you can learn from them. Yeah. But you cannot learn pedagogy from them. That's a really big hurdle. Yeah. And I think that's important. As a tech director, you will manage or supervise a group of educators or staff. So you
Yeah.
have to have experience in leading collaborative meetings and effective teams, which I would say will make your life really easier on the service that your team is providing and also on the decision making process.
Sure. That's really interesting. Now, what so in Qatar, like you basically what was your you did the 21st century learning. Did your role change when you were there, or did it stay more or less the same in Qatar before you came to Peru?
It stayed the same.
Yeah.
It stayed the same. Yes.
And actually, just obviously, part of this is talking about to live. Like, how would you describe Qatar as a place to live? Obviously, people get paid very well there. Um, it's an interesting environment. Like, what was your experience of living there with a family? Like, can you give us a feeling of what it was like to live there?
My husband and I really miss Qatar.
Really?
Not just because of the income that you get, it's because of the connections and the friends that become your family. It's a country where 75% are expats.
Yep.
That means that you get to know a lot of people from different places, and they're trying to find a connection with everybody else, and you get together over the weekends. It's a different feeling. Like, we don't get that in Peru. We
Yeah.
might be the 1% of expats where you don't get to that. You only hang out with your own school colleagues. So that's
Right.
something that we're really, really missing. Another part that we really like about Qatar and China was about safety and security.
Yep.
You can walk, you can leave your door open, you can leave your car open and running, and nothing happens.
Sure.
You don't get to do that in Latin America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's different because, like, in Peru, I mean, it's such a friendly, open place. Like, it's like, you can just go out, and I guess some of these countries where, like, say Qatar, where it's a bit more restrictive in terms of the laws and things, the foreigners probably, like you say, come closer together because, it's a very different environment, whereas somewhere like Peru, it's like, it's very easy just to go out and meet people and, do your own thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. In terms of the laws, I think the locals, the Qataris, they were very open.
Really?
I mean, we have never any issues with them. You can drive, you can do anything. We found them very friendly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So you made a decision to move back to Latin America. Like, were you looking to move, like, based on like a career thing? You wanted to find a more senior position, or did you just want to go back to Latin America?
This is basically like a parallel position that I'm now. I'm the Director of Innovation and Technology at the Colegio Roosevelt, the American School of Lima. And something that my husband and I wanted to do is, our daughter was 1 year old, or 1 year and a half, and she was really asking who else is her family. So we really wanted to go closer to our family, which is between Uruguay, Ecuador, and the US, where my brothers live. So Peru, this position came up, and the school has a great reputation in international network.
Yeah.
So I apply, and I'm happy to be here. This is my third year. I'm finishing my third year right now.
Yeah.
And I will have to say that, since I started in leadership positions, I always wanted to find a connection with what is happening at the instructional core, whether it's your teachers, your students, and your content.
Yeah.
So when I moved to these positions, I always felt disconnected with what's happening in the classroom. So that's why for over 10 years, I have worked with the International Baccalaureate in different projects. I'm a principal examiner, and recently I'm developing the curriculum of their new course called Digital Society, which will be replacing ITGS soon, in a couple of years.
Great. What do you think? It's interesting, because I've got two children. Obviously, I'm thinking about, like, curriculums and stuff. Like, what's your opinion on the International Baccalaureate, like the whole thing, the PYP, MYP, DP, as opposed to, like, the alternatives, like, the UK and American-based curriculums? Like, do you think it's? I mean, it's a very big question, but like, what's your opinion? Like, if you were comparing, like for your daughter, for example, what would you prefer her to learn?
I would say it could be the PYP or the NYP or any other curriculum, as long as there's personalized learning path that she's following, that she's getting pushed to the next level and not just stay there with the
Yeah.
rest of the class. That's something that I'm looking as a mother.
Sure.
And I really like the diploma program. I really believe in it because it has an international mindedness.
Yeah.
And also it prepares the student not just to go to college, but for life,
Yeah.
which are the ATLs. And that's something that I really value.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm actually doing a master's in some education related topic. I actually just wrote a paper about international mindedness with the International Baccalaureate. I should send you it to read.
Oh, that would be great to read then.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd probably be a bit embarrassing to send it to somebody else, like, but it's an interesting topic, The whole international mindedness thing is like, well, first of all, how do you define it? There's a few different ways. It's fascinating to me, Now, what are you thinking next? Like, what's like for you? Because that's the thing, when people get to become like your kind of role, the next thing is, do you want to go to school leadership or stay in a kind of technology role? Like, what are you thinking in terms of your career?
I think that's very interesting to think about now. I've been doing technology for over 10 years and also in leadership positions of technology for over 10 years. So I think that in 1 year or two, I want to take the next jump. I'm finishing my PhD. I really hope that I finish this year.
Yeah.
And with that, I would like to go to like a role in associate director. I really like systems. I'm a person that really likes to find how processes and flows work within a school, whether it's admissions, finance, technology, purchasing, or anything like that. And I like to find how can I improve the system and the flow of the people and the software as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Just to say about a PhD, like how it's something I've always thought about. Like, how would you estimate the workload? Like, is it more than you thought? Less? Is it manageable for someone who's working with a family? Like, obviously you're managing it, so it's possible. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, doing your PhD is like becoming a parent. You're never
Right.
ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
My recommendation is do not switch jobs in between because it will cut the flow of your research. And that's something I did and I regret. And that's why my PhD is taking longer. And my suggestion will be find a topic that has a meaning for you or you have a real connection with, because that will be your inspiration to continue working on it. I really had to focus myself. I really had to use my calendar to create time slots for me to work on that.
Yeah. And how did you do that personally? Did you do it like early in the morning or when everyone's gone to bed? Like, when did you find time, or when do you find time to work on it? How do you structure it?
Normally in the afternoons when my daughter goes to the park, then I get 1 or 2 hours to focus on that.
Okay, interesting, cool. And finally, I want to just talk about like Peru, because again, living there, like how, like what's it like? People maybe they're looking at jobs in international schools, Peru and Latin America generally. Like, how would you describe it? Like, what's it like to live for foreigners coming in? Is it expensive? Is it sociable? Like, I mean, it's obviously a big question, but what things would you pick out about living there?
I think working in Latin America is very different from other parts of the world. As everything, it has its great things and also things that you need to consider before you move. First of all, you will feel a stronger sense of connections between the students and their families. There's a big appreciation towards food, travel, and summer. Summer here is from December to February. It's a sacred time of the year to enjoy the amazing weather. You gather with family and friends and you travel around South America. On the other side, you have to be, as I said before, more aware of your safety and security. Also, you need to know a little bit of few Spanish words to get around, and traveling through air, it's a little bit, it's not as cheap as Europe, Middle East, or Asia.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's not as, and I think generally, there's not as the salaries are probably not as high as like the Middle East or like Hong Kong or China, I guess, as well. Maybe China, but not. I think the Middle East is probably better paid, I would say, generally, isn't it?
Yeah. But not. I mean, my school especially not that different.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're not saying 50% less. No, it's
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
it's a lesser percentage.
It's
And
interesting.
if
Sorry, carry
go
on.
ahead, Ben.
No, no, I was saying about it's just the safety thing because like I've traveled a lot in South America. And I've been to Ecuador and Colombia and Peru and El Salvador, and everyone talks about how it's dangerous. And obviously I'm a man and I'm over 6 foot, so like maybe I'm not the most obvious target, but I've never like I've always felt fine, and everyone talks about how dangerous it is, but I've never seen almost anything to make me think that it was dangerous. It's just but everyone says it, so it must be true.
Well, there's a difference when you're a tourist, when you're living in the country. And
Yeah,
that's what happened to me in China. When you're a tourist, oh, you see the Great Wall, this nice and that. But when you're living, it's very different.
yeah.
So I think you went probably to the tourist places, Dan, when you visit South America.
Yeah, mostly all the cities, but I spent time in the cities as well. Like which is
Okay.
but again, I suppose in Latin America, it's very different. Like in terms of the income level of the city, you've got a very high income part, like where I was staying in Peru, and then there's probably parts where you could get into trouble if you go in the city.
Exactly. And bigger cities in South America, the good neighborhoods and the bad neighborhoods are closer together. So
Yeah.
it could be a separation of one street only. So that's what you need to be worried about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I noticed it in El Salvador because in San Salvador, the capital, like the walls on the houses, normally you have a wall around your house, maybe a small bit. These walls were like 15 feet high with barbed wire on the top, and at the end of the street, like a gate, like a guard house with I mean, that was really like, they took security crazy seriously in San Salvador. That's the most I've ever seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, is there anything else? Like, is it an easy place to settle in for foreigners? Do you think? I mean, if they go to live in like Peru or other similar countries?
Yeah, I would say Peru, it's pretty safe. Ecuador, I'm from Ecuador. I would say it's also pretty safe. Chile
Yeah.
as well. They have a great international school there, Nido de Águilas. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to know more about international schools in South America or Latin America, you should check ASA, which is the Association of the American Schools in South America. On their website, you'll see a list, and they also have job fairs that you can sign up for.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that. There's I think the conference is it taking place this year or is it postponed, the annual conference?
I think it's happening because it's around November, December.
Yeah, I was looking at it. Yeah, cool. Well, I definitely like to go. Well, Danielle, I know you got to leave at 1:30, so I want to say thank you very much for talking. Like, where can people find you online? Like, do you have a website or LinkedIn or just email? Or how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can just find me on Twitter. I learned D Silva. My website also is danosilva.com, or on LinkedIn. If you can just search for Daniela Silva, you'll find me there, and I'll happy to connect and talk to you.
Cool. I'll put all the links in the show notes. Daniela, thank you very much and great to talk.
Nice to see you, Dan.